And now for our next news special report.
A cataclysmic bombshell dropped today that makes President Trump's ultimate vindication all but inevitable, folks. The Supreme Court just dynamited away the corrupt house of cards devised to block his righteous return. By agreeing to review a pivotal appeal, the high bench's wise intervention slams the brakes on special counsel racing to convict Trump before he's restored to power. Today's history-making maneuver instantly blocks their rigged sham trial. So stay tuned, Patriots. I'll explain this earthquake's impact, disemboweling not just bogus charges against Trump, but the whole fraudulent witch hunt contrived to depose America's leading nationalist populist. And don't miss our final thought on how today's tectonic shift ushers in the day of reckoning for corrupt institutions weaponized against him. Now, folks, as we dive into the explosive implications of this monumental Supreme Court intervention, a quick word about the need for unfiltered truth. In an era of disinformation weaponized to manipulate public opinion, Ground News offers a transparent perspective. Much like this ruling, pierced through the establishment's deceptions, this innovative platform reveals the biases spinning major news. Picture this, a poll showing over half of American voters owning guns, yet only one left-leaning outlet reports it, compared to 9 conservative ones. This is where Ground News comes in, shining a light on the stories neglected by one side of the political spectrum. As we head towards the 2024 election, stay informed with Ground News and subscribe at ground.news/nextnews for a 40% discount, ensuring you never miss the full story. Support transparent media with Ground News. Now, let's get back to unpacking this historic check on tyranny that may finally trigger the unraveling of the whole corrupt Trump investigation. The politicized bureaucracy just suffered an earth-shattering defeat in their twisted plot to sabotage President Trump's heroic crusade to make America great again and drain the swamp. Their authoritarian ploys to weaponize the justice system against the populist leader spectacularly backfired as the Supreme Court has decided to intervene to halt Jack Smith's dangerous prosecution. In siding with an appeal from an unjustly prosecuted January 6th protester, America's highest tribunal set off an explosive chain reaction that could vaporize the most potent charges against President Trump, as MSNBC shocked the left-wing media establishment, admitting the implications go far beyond this specific case. Watch.
A decision today by the nation's highest court that could have major implications for the unprecedented and historic criminal prosecution of Donald Trump. The justices announcing today that they will hear an appeal by a January 6th defendant. His name is Joseph Fisher. He has been indicted on 7 charges related to the insurrection, including obstruction of an official proceeding, which is also, as you know, a charge brought by special counsel Jack Smith against Donald Trump. Now, Fisher is seeking to dismiss that count. The central question before the Supreme Court, according to the New York Times, quote, can the government charge defendants in those cases under a federal law that makes it a crime to corruptly obstruct an official congressional proceeding? And here's how the Times lays out the stakes of this move by the Supreme Court today. Quote, the decision to hear the case will complicate and perhaps delay the start of Mr. Trump's trial, now scheduled to take place in Washington in March. The Supreme Court's ultimate ruling, which may not arrive until June, will likely address the viability of 2 of the main counts against Mr. Trump and could severely limit efforts by the special counsel Jack Smith to hold the former president accountable for the violence that his supporters committed at the Capitol. Whatever the justices decide could also have a major impact on what has become the largest investigation in DOJ history. Prosecutors have also charged more than 300 defendants with obstruction of an official proceeding. Some of them have already been convicted. The Supreme Court's decision today, just one of many factors that could have ended the case.
Make no mistake, today's bombshell court maneuver sends shockwaves with earthquake force, leaving the special counsel investigation in ruins now that its corrupt foundation is shattered. By accepting this pivotal petition, the Supreme Court put itself in a position to establish new constraints on the statute being used to falsely criminalize President Trump's legitimate crusade for ballot integrity. Any binding precedent limiting or nullifying the DOJ's twisted interpretation of that obstruction law would tank the most menacing threat hanging over Trump, a potential 20-year prison sentence. This runaway prosecution already suffered a near-fatal blow last week When a federal judge eviscerated the foundation of their case in an earth-shattering ruling, it's a overtly political prosecution. But today's intervention signifies the potential final nail in the coffin for this witch hunt that has violated every principle of impartial justice from the outset. In their desperation, as Trump returns to the Oval Office becomes more inevitable, the authoritarian regime blatantly overplayed their hand. Now the Supreme Court's acceptance of this appeal puts in grave jeopardy over 300 prosecutions on inflated obstruction charges against January 6 political prisoners as well. All along, the America First movement has sounded the alarm on how Mueller, Weissman, and the rest of the swamp's legal goon squad misinterpreted that statute to enable political targeting. President Trump has endured years of unjust scrutiny at immense personal expense, but finally his vindication may have arrived, not just shielding him from these latest bogus charges, but exposing the entire Russia collusion witch hunt that spawned this partisan sequel from the same corrupt cast. And by stepping in at this 11th hour with their emergency hearing, the Supreme Court asserts its duty as a co-equal branch checking an executive branch run amok. The impartial bureaucratic state overplayed its hand by refusing to stand down its campaign of illegal harassment, even as Trump's popularity and political fortunes continue rising. In their desperation to fortify their crumbling deceptions before Trump returns to power with a mandate to restore justice, they rush into panic measures like this extraordinary appeal trying to fast-track their case before America has its say in 2024. But the highest court in the land just threw a massive roadblock before this out-of-control Justice Department railroading an innocent patriot with any means necessary. The shock ruling signifies the first real hope that accountability may finally arrive, not just for President Trump, but for the lawless deep state cabal that embedded federal agencies and squandered public trust through rampant abuses. By intervening here to review this unprecedented political prosecution, the Supreme Court reasserted itself as the only functional bulwark left against tyranny with the executive branch in shambles. Perhaps sweeping indictments are forthcoming against those who have corrupted justice to protect themselves, from the special counsel and attorney general weaponizing litigation without restraint down to the FBI and DOJ flouting laws that they enforce against ordinary citizens. Patriots must unite like never before as we approach the pivotal 2024 election with so much at stake, our security, prosperity, and sacrosanct endowed rights hanging in the balance. The court's monumental decision today reminds us that even in our darkest hours when injustice reigns, our constitutional system, endowed by divine providence, still provides peaceful means of redress when courageous men stand on principle. By following the founders' brilliant blueprint with wisdom and integrity, the Supreme Court just hit the emergency brake on a bogus prosecution threatening the very engine of our republic: orderly elections without authoritarian interference. This underscores why we must elect principled America First leadership up and down ballots to restore trust in core institutions. The unequaled corruption of the swamp establishment is now plain as day thanks to President Trump finally exposing what grassroots patriots have railed against for decades. We the people see our government as broken, from the local school boards to federal alphabet agencies, but today we gained real hope that accountability is coming if we persist in raising up our uncompromising voices. The Supreme Court's shock intervention makes clear we cannot, in good conscience, leave the anti-American Bolsheviks and China's sellouts in power 1 minute longer than necessary. Tap subscribe if you got value from this report and help us spread the message so every America First patriot understand what's at stake to save this last best hope for mankind. Now here's my final thought on the tremendous implications of today's historic decision. The Supreme Court lit the fuse that may finally topple the deep state's house of cards. Their wise intervention slams the brakes on the federal prosecution racing out of control, desperately chasing President Trump as he's poised to return on the wings of a national populist movement. This naked politicization of law enforcement sets up an un-American precedent that a bureaucracy can nullify voters' will by weaponizing litigation against political rivals. But the tide may have turned. The seismic ruling suggests Trump may soon not stand alone against the swamp. With accountability now erupting on multiple fronts, we the people must apply maximum peaceful pressure to restore the balance of power the founders envisioned and defend liberty at the precipice. So take heart, renewed faith lets us follow Trump's lead in advocating America First policies with courage, conviction, and patriotic pride, fearing no evil even as wickedness seems unrestrained in the halls of power. For the silent majority will soon roar again at the ballot boxes coast to coast.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Now keep up your quest for truth with this next news report. And if you found our channel enlightening, join the millions who agree with you. Tap subscribe. Thank you for watching the Next News Network.